Good afternoon, my name is Kat Santini and I'm a third year of SPS, and this is Anthony Giddens. He is a British political advisor who is known for his theory of structuration and his holistic view of modern societies, which explores the individuals and the social systems. He is also the author of at least 34 books published in at least 29 languages. And he is also the former director of London School of Economics, Cambridge, and he is a Life Fellow of King's College as well, and is a member of the House of Lords, United Kingdom. So, Tony, can you tell me a little bit more about yourself?
Yeah, first and foremost, I'm an academic. My main interest is in the big transformations that happened over the past century and a half that have shaped our world, and that's been my career really. Most of the books you mentioned have been about that issue in one way or another.
And what are you going to be discussing later in our seminar?
Well, if I might say also that I'm also a publisher, because I've helped found Polity Press quite a long time ago, the publisher of that book among lots of others, now doing about 150 books a year, so I'm quite proud of that, I must say. I'm also an activist because I'm very deeply engaged with environmental issues, because one of the books I wrote was on climate change. And I'm also a political actor because I spend a lot of the time in the Parliament in debates and trying to actually shape policy, so I would say I span all those four areas really.
Wow, that's very interesting. And this is your recent published book. It's A Turbulent and Mighty Continent, What Future for Europe? Can you tell me a little bit about this, please?
Yes, that book has been shaped by the just extraordinary set of challenges that we face in Europe at the moment, which also reflect wider global challenges. There's a big period of transition for the world, I think, but also particularly in Europe, and Europe has to try and surmount a series of crises in which is involved. One results from the fact that the single currency, the euro, is not really completed, and that's created divisions across Europe, for example, between the northern part of Europe and the southern countries, with like Germany at one end and Greece at the other end, as we know. Then you have new conflict and crisis involving Russia, poised dangerously still on the edge of Europe in the Ukraine, now intervening in Syria. Then you have mass migration, as we know, into the European continent, going to be really hard to manage and deal with in an effective way, because it's got a mixed humanity and effectiveness, and that is still ongoing. And then there's us. Us, because the other issue that is important in the European context is, will the United Kingdom stay part of the European Union now? I have to say I'm a pro-European. I think it's far better for this country to act collectively with other countries.
Of course.
And therefore, for me, I certainly hope and will try to play a part in the country staying part of the European Union. I mean, everybody's always talking about reform, like the Prime Minister, but everybody agrees the EU has to reform because it has to confront these issues that I mentioned. But imagine if all these countries are separate. Imagine if you had to conduct 28 agreements with different countries. It would be a shambles. So we need the EU, we need to be part of the EU.
And last questions. How do you think that's going to affect us in the next 10, 20 years?
Well, it depends who the us is, because if the us is Britain, then I think if the UK should exit the EU, the United Kingdom will almost certainly be no more, because Scotland very likely to hold a referendum and leave if that happens. So that would lead to a fragmentation of the country itself. So far as the wider world is concerned, in the speech I'm going to give today, I just think this is one of the biggest periods of transformation ever, in which digital revolution is one of the main driving influences, but this is a world which no one wholly predicted, I think. It looks dangerous. It looks staccato. It doesn't seem to fit what people would have predicted maybe 10, 15 years ago. And so we're at a certain age of history, and I must say it's going to affect your generation a lot, because you're going to have to deal with the consequences of what happens in the next few years, which will see whether we can get through this crisis period or not, because it's something like a major period of global transition, I think.
Well, we look forward to hearing what you're going to discuss about in the next hour, so thank you for that. And that's it.
Thank you to Perceptive Questions.